He once made people laugh for a living. A man standing on a brightly lit stage, wearing a suit, his voice full of irony and joy. Crowds cheered. Cameras flashed. No one imagined that one day that same man would wear a bulletproof vest, stand beneath gray skies, and speak to the world about courage, survival, and freedom. He was not born to command armies. He was not trained for war, yet history chose him, or perhaps he chose history. This is the story of Volodymyr Zelensky, the comedian who became a wartime icon and a global controversy. A man who turned laughter into resistance and light into a weapon against fear. Volodymyr Zelensky was born in 1978 in Kryvyi Rih, a rough industrial city in central Ukraine. He grew up in a Soviet apartment block, gray walls, narrow corridors, and the quiet ambition of a family that valued education over politics. His father was a professor, his mother an engineer. They expected their son to follow a normal path, study hard, get a degree, live safely. But Zelensky was different. He found rhythm in mimicry, energy in performance, and freedom in laughter. He studied law but never practiced it. Instead, he created a comedy troupe called Kvartal 95, named after his neighborhood, and it exploded in popularity across the post-Soviet world. He had perfect timing, a boyish grin, and a sharp instinct for irony. His jokes often targeted politicians, corruption, and hypocrisy. Audiences adored him because he said what they could not. Then came the role that would change everything. In 2015, Zelensky starred in a TV series called Servant of the People. He played a humble schoolteacher whose rant against government corruption went viral and who, almost by accident, became president of Ukraine. It was fiction, until it wasn't. By 2019, fiction became reality. Zelensky, the actor, launched a real political party with the same name as his show. He ran for president against an entire political establishment, promising honesty, simplicity, and change. People laughed at first, but then they believed him. And against all odds, he won, with more than 70% of the vote. The comedian had become a president. The country that once laughed with him now looked to him for hope. At first, Zelensky's presidency was filled with optimism. He promised to end corruption, modernize Ukraine, and bring peace to the Eastern Front, where Russian-backed separatists had been fighting since 2014. But the realities of power hit hard. The Ukrainian system was old, tangled, and slow to change. Oligarchs, wealthy businessmen who influenced politics for decades, still held enormous sway. Many in the political class doubted Zelensky's seriousness. Some mocked him as an actor playing president. Still, he tried. He met with world leaders, negotiated prisoner exchanges, and sought dialogue with Moscow. He pushed reforms, not always successfully, and faced constant pressure from both his allies and his critics. Then came the whispers of scandal. Documents in the Pandora Papers linked him and his close partners to offshore companies, a detail that damaged his image as an anti-corruption crusader. His approval ratings began to slip. The glow of the outsider was fading. And yet, deep beneath the surface, something else was forming, something that would soon define him forever. Far beyond politics or polls, a storm was gathering on Ukraine's border. By late 2021, Russian troops began to mass, tens of thousands of them. Satellite images showed tanks, artillery, and the steady buildup of men and metal. The world watched, uneasy. Zelensky warned his people, but also tried to keep calm. He refused to create panic. Some accused him of being naive. Others said he was trying to save his nation's fragile economy from collapse. Either way, the countdown had begun. On the morning of February 24, 2022, Ukraine awoke to the sound of explosions. Russian missiles struck airports, bases, and cities across the country. The sky lit up with fire. War had returned to Europe. World leaders called Zelensky, urging him to flee. It was the rational choice. Evacuate, form a government in exile, stay alive. But Zelensky refused. His voice appeared on video that night, shaky, filmed on a phone, standing in the dark streets of Kyiv with his closest aides. He said simply, "We are all here. We are defending our independence." Those words electrified his country. For a population that expected defeat within days, that moment changed everything. Zelensky did not vanish. He stayed. And suddenly, the comedian became the symbol of resistance. He appeared on screens across the world, not as a polished politician, but as a man under siege. No teleprompter, no stage lights. Just a tired face, unshaven, wearing military green. He spoke to parliaments, the US Congress, the British Parliament, the Bundestag, and the European Union. Each speech tailored to history, each a plea for help and solidarity. He quoted Winston Churchill, Martin Luther King Jr., and the words of his own people. He turned communication into weaponry. Every video, every speech became an act of defiance. For millions, Zelensky embodied courage. He refused to surrender. He rallied soldiers and civilians alike. Ordinary Ukrainians, teachers, taxi drivers, engineers, took up arms. His face appeared on posters, murals, and digital screens from Tokyo to New York. The actor had found the role of a lifetime, but this one demanded real blood, real loss, and real pain. As months turned into years, the cost of war grew unbearable. Cities were reduced to rubble, families separated, thousands of lives lost. Zelensky remained at the center, both as leader and as symbol. He visited frontline towns, comforted the wounded, spoke at funerals. He wore no suit, only the olive-green sweatshirt that became his trademark, a uniform of endurance. But the longer the war dragged on, the more complex his image became. Abroad, many still saw him as a hero, a modern David facing a nuclear Goliath. At home, however, fatigue began to show. Ukrainians loved his resolve but questioned his methods. Some critics said his government grew less tolerant of dissent, more centralized, more military. Others accused him of over-relying on Western aid while suppressing political opposition. Journalists who once admired him now debated whether the war had transformed him or consumed him. Western nations, too, began to show cracks in their unity. Aid slowed, politics shifted, and the once clear narrative of good versus evil blurred into fatigue and complexity. For Zelensky, the stage lights dimmed, but he could not step off. There was no curtain to close, no ending written yet. He had become the face of Ukraine's suffering and its stubborn will to live. In private, he confessed the toll it took. He missed his wife, his children. He barely slept. He carried the deaths of soldiers on his conscience, their names engraved into his silence. The man who once joked about politicians now carried the unbearable weight of being one. Every decision he made, whether to attack, to retreat, to speak, cost lives. History has no rehearsal, and he had no script. Today, Volodymyr Zelensky stands at the crossroads of admiration and doubt. To some, he is the defender of democracy, the man who proved that courage can change the world. To others, he is a populist who learned to weaponize emotion and media in equal measure. Both can be true, because history rarely offers simple heroes. His transformation, from comedian to commander, reminds us that leadership is born not only in power, but in pressure, in moments when fear whispers surrender and a single voice says, no. His story also exposes the contradictions of modern war, where battles are fought not just on land, but on screens, where truth competes with propaganda, where victory is not measured in territory, but in attention. Zelensky mastered that stage. He turned the smartphone into a pulpit. He used his background in performance not to deceive, but to survive. He knew that in a digital age, visibility is power, and silence is defeat. Yet even as he inspired millions, questions remain. What happens when the war ends? Will the hero of wartime become a burden in peace? Will the man who unified a nation under fire be able to heal it when the guns fall silent? History often turns its brightest icons into its most fragile ones. Napoleon, Churchill, Mandela, each carried triumph and tragedy in equal weight. Zelensky's chapter is still being written. Perhaps one day, his legacy will not be decided by what he won, but by what he endured, by how he turned fear into faith, exhaustion into defiance, and despair into meaning. In the end, his journey is not only Ukraine's, it is a mirror for the modern world, a reminder that leadership can emerge from unexpected places, that humor can coexist with hardship, that even in the darkest night, the human spirit seeks light, sometimes in the most unlikely of men. Volodymyr Zelensky began his life making people laugh. Now, he lives to keep them alive. And that, whether one calls it courage, destiny, or irony, is what makes his story unforgettable.